It is now my pleasure to introduce our distinguished opening keynote speaker. I would like to have Yorgos and Kristen get down. Haben is a worldwide leader in disability rights and believes disability is an opportunity for innovation. She's the first deafblind person to graduate from Harvard Law School. She is a human rights lawyer advancing disability justice. There are so many accolades and awards, but let me cover a few. President Obama named her a White House Champion of Change. She's also received recognition from President Bill Clinton, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, and Chancellor Angela Merkel. She received the Helen Keller Achievement Award, a spot on the Forbes 30 Under 30 list, and Time 100 Talks. For some logistics, Haben is so happy to meet you. We're going to do a meet and greet after the talk. We're going to have Haben exit the conference area. There's a dining room on the opposite side where we'll be eating. There's a lot of space there. We're going to form a well-organized line. And you can then meet and take selfies with Haben. She's also happy to sign her book, which I'm showing an image of here. So we'll coordinate that after the talk. And so the meet and greet is going to be across in the dining space. Okay, great. So with that, I would love to welcome Haben Girma to the stage. Thank you.
My little boyfriend. All right and left. Good boy. Left. Good morning. My name is Haben Girma. As you heard, I'm deafblind, limited vision and hearing, huge spectrum in the deafblind community of different levels of vision and hearing and different communication styles. Some people voice, some sign, and some use Braille. During this presentation, I'm going to be using a Braille computer. I am holding it up. For those of you who know blind tech, it's a Braille note. So along the bottom, there's Braille, and I have a typist in the front row typing audio and visual descriptions. So when you said good morning, he typed good morning. And during the presentation, I want to stay connected with the audience. I want to know how people are engaging and feeling. And I'll be getting typed descriptions when people smile, laugh, fall asleep. He's watching you. Text. The written word has been my lifeline to the world. Typed text on keyboards, written words in books, articles. Other deafblind people like Helen Keller similarly understood a lot about the world through the written word. And this year, I've encountered AI researchers who are arguing that because deafblind people like Helen Keller understood the world through the written word, then AI language models must be like deafblind people and must be like humans. When you compare deafblind people to codes and machines, that's dehumanizing. Whenever humans are compared to machines, that's the definition of dehumanizing behavior. This is not new for disabled people, and especially for deafblind people. I am very used to people treating me as though I'm not human. One of the most popular verification tools to prove you're human is to be able to recognize visuals and images. That's how you prove you're not a robot. And they have accessibility features where you can listen to audio, but it's assumed that you must see and hear to be human. There are, of course, accessible designs. Many of you can think of excellent accessible designs, but these are often not implemented in our world. And the assumption is that deafblind people are less than human. And this is happening to other disabled experiences as well. There's a word for this: ableism. ABLEISM. It's the concept that you have to be fully able-bodied to deserve dignity and respect, that one's worth is tied to one's physical and mental and emotional abilities. There are many practices and beliefs that treat disabled people as inferior to non-disabled people. I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area. My parents are from Eritrea and Ethiopia. And when I was growing up, lots of people would tell them, "Poor thing, she'll never go to school, she'll never get a job." That was ableism, assuming low expectations for a disabled child. As the daughter of refugees, a Black woman, disabled, lots of stories say my life doesn't matter. We had to learn to resist those stories. And I've learned to define disability as an opportunity for innovation. If you can't do something one way, there are alternative ways to do them out there. Many of you know about this and are engaging in projects to increase opportunities for disabled people. There's sometimes a tendency to only imagine one disabled experience. For example, thinking of the blind community, but ending up working only for hearing blind individuals, or elevating white hearing blind experiences and overlooking the experiences of blind people of color. We are multidimensional. We live many different experiences, and it's important that our projects tap into the diverse range of lived experiences for disabled people. If you're doing research projects on disabled people and making arguments about language models and disabled people, include disabled people, especially disabled researchers as well. Ableism gets built into our code, our schools, and all our different programs. I was warned that if I wanted to be successful, I'd have to work twice as hard as sighted hearing people. The pressure was put on the disabled person to change, rather than insisting that society do the work of dismantling ableism. That's part of ableism, telling disabled students and professors that they need to work double or triple the work of non-disabled people, when instead we should be telling non-disabled society to work hard to remove barriers. When I was in college, a lot of people around me were getting summer jobs and internships as a way to have a sense of what you want to do after college. No one wanted to hire a deafblind person. I really wanted a job. I wanted to get a sense of what I could imagine for my future. It's hard to know career opportunities for deafblind people. So I had to test out, explore, and seek opportunities. Someone, a really good friend, told me they know where I could get a job. Alaska. There were lots of summer openings in Juneau, Alaska. They were right about that. And I really wanted a job. So I flew up to Alaska. I sent in applications. There were so many openings in the tourism industry. People were coming up to see the glaciers, the whales, the eagles. And employers were struggling to fill all their openings. So I got lots of responses. People were impressed with my grades in school, my volunteer experiences. When I'd come in for interviews, that's when they realized I'm disabled, and they'd come up with all kinds of excuses not to hire me. These were tactile jobs that didn't require sight. Washing dishes, folding laundry. When I was younger, I told my parents blind people can't do dishes. They didn't believe me. So I had lots of experience in this field. But employers still assumed that you have to be able to see to do dishes. And if I couldn't get a job as a dishwasher, what careers could I imagine for myself? I kept applying, kept getting rejected. Lots of people tell disabled people just work harder. Many of us are already working really hard. We need employers to work harder to resist ableism and resist employment discrimination. That is the biggest barrier I've been facing in my career, not my deafblindness, but assumptions among professors and employers that assume disabled people are incompetent. Through friends of friends, I found an employer who believed in my abilities. She asked me how I would do the tasks. I explained. She listened and hired me to work the front desk of her small gym in Juneau, Alaska. That summer, I learned a lot about gym equipment. One day, a woman came up to the front desk and said a treadmill isn't working. I followed her to the treadmill. I put down my cane and I felt the machine from top to bottom. Near the bottom, there was a switch. I flicked the switch and the machine whirred to life. She told me, "Oh my goodness, I didn't see that switch." I told her I didn't see it either. Sometimes tactile techniques beat visual techniques. Disabled people are talented. We have lots of history of innovating and creating tech that benefits us and the rest of our community. And we just need more professors and employers to be aware of ableism and join us in doing the work to remove ableism. A lot of the innovation of disabled people has been hidden, and that's part of ableism. So we need to elevate our stories of how disability sparks innovation. I'll give some examples. If one can't hear language, one can create visual language. And deaf communities all over the world have developed various sign languages. I have a video. Can you play the first video? So in this video, this is me signing with a friend at a university in Mexico, Instituto Tecnológico de Sonora. He is sighted and deaf, and watching me sign, I'm holding my hands over his hands to feel his signs. Most of our sign languages are visual, designed for sighted deaf people, and they're deaf-blind advocates pioneering and developing pro-tactile, a language and communication culture and philosophy that centers touch and access for deaf-blind people. That's still being developed, still being created by deaf-blind people, for deaf-blind people. Skin is one of our largest organs. There's so much potential to communicate information through touch. And disabled researchers can help lead the way in creating more innovation at the intersection of tech and haptics. There are lots of different ways to communicate. Next video. I'm salsa dancing at a club in New York City. I was excused from a lot of physical education courses growing up because instructors assumed I wouldn't be able to participate. Then one summer, I went to a camp for the blind, and there was a blind dance instructor teaching us swing, salsa, merengue. As a deaf-blind dancer, I can't see the other dancers. I can't hear the beat of the music, but I can feel the beat through the hands and shoulders of the people I dance with. I've danced all over the world, India, Mexico, Dubai. One time I tried dancing in Washington, D.C., and they said, no, you can't come in, no dogs. The dog with me is a seeing eye dog, and I explained, under the Americans with Disabilities Act, everywhere the public can go, guide dogs can go. Hotels, Lyfts and Ubers, restaurants. And they still insisted, no, you can't come in, no dogs. My deaf blindness doesn't stop me from dancing. Ableism sometimes stops me from dancing. That's the biggest barrier I encounter, and it's true for a lot of disabled people. When I've had access, it's because the instructors and colleagues and people around me chose to ask, what are the barriers and how do we remove the barriers? One of my favorites was a high school teacher who asked me, do you want to try surfing? And I thought to myself, how would a blind person surf? I'd never heard of blind people surfing. But I told her, sure, let's give it a try. And she introduced me to a program in Santa Cruz called Ride a Wave that takes students with disabilities tandem surfing. Video, please. So I'm surfing on a tandem board, which is a larger board. The water guides at the back, I'm near the front. I loved the experience of feeling the vibration of the ocean through my feet, through the surfboard, and the sun and the wind. I wanted to build up my skills as a surfer. That specific program did not do lessons. So I reached out to surf schools in California asking, can I take lessons? And they told me, we've never heard of a deaf-blind surfer. That is a common reaction in many different fields. We've never had a disabled person in this program. We don't mean to be discouraging or anything. It's just, we can't think how it would be possible. It can't be done. That's a very common response. When I started college, I really wanted to go into computer science. And like many women of color and disabled women of color, I faced a lot of resistance in trying to take mathematics courses. I had excellent math skills and did great on exams. But there was so much reluctance to make accommodations for instructors to adjust their teaching. It was so frustrating that I ended up leaving that field and going into sociology and anthropology. That happens to a lot of people, especially disabled women of color, trying to go into this field. There are assumptions about what researchers look like, who's too disabled to be a researcher, what are the barriers in our fields, and how do we remove them? If you've never had a disabled person in your program, use that as an opportunity to deepen your understanding of your program. That's what I did with surfing. I found an instructor who said, we've never had a deaf-blind person, but let's try, let's figure it out. And we had a lesson. Next slide. So in this video, I'm surfing on a smaller board, trying to surf, trying to balance and stay up. And the instructor is next to me on a second surfboard, and he's staying close to help steer around other surfers and sharks. We kept exploring this and asking, what are ways for blind and deaf-blind people to stay oriented in the water where my Braille computer would not survive? And we found paying attention to the waves, the direction of the waves, the wind, the sun. There are so many tactile elements out on the water. And the instructor found that he was learning more about surfing and communication in the ocean by re-examining his classes from a deaf-blind perspective. If you've never had a disabled person in your program, that's an opportunity to deepen your understanding of your field. Examine what the barriers are, and then engage in the work to remove those barriers. It's not just for the students, it's also for the professors. All of us benefit when we remove barriers. One more surfing video. And in this one, I'm more on my own, but the community is staying nearby, and I was lying down on the board, then standing up. And we found that wearing a shirt that said deaf-blind helped communicate to the other people around us, the other surfers around us, to keep their distance and give us space as we had our surf lessons. Every different field has ways that it can be made more accessible. Skiing is another area. Next video. When I ski side by side with a friend or instructor, and they communicate information through their hand, signaling, moving to the left, to the right, through hand gestures as we glide down the hill. I've been doing talks for several years now, and when I started doing talks, I didn't have videos of dancing or surfing or skiing. I just got straight to the point about the ADA and disability rates. But so many people have been trained through our culture to view disabled people as less than human. And I realized because of our culture, I had to establish and prove my humanity. I've noticed other people from underrepresented groups also face this social expectation that if we want our concerns met, we have to first prove our humanity and establish that. In our culture, images of a life well lived are often symbolized through activities like dancing and surfing and skiing. I do hope we can get to a point where that's not necessary, where disabled people, people of color, people of any underrepresented group are immediately treated with dignity and respect and don't feel the pressure to work twice as hard as non-disabled people or prove their humanity to gain entrance into a community. I'm now a disability advocate. I was not always a disability advocate. I came to that slowly over time, and a huge chunk of that happened when I was in college. I went to Lewis and Clark in Portland, Oregon, in the northwest of the U.S. And Lewis and Clark told me we've never had a Braille reader before. Some other schools I was looking at similarly said we've never had a Braille reader before, and used that to discourage me for coming to their schools. But Lewis and Clark chose to say, we've never had a Braille reader, but we will get a Braille embosser. We will get Braille translation software. In the summer before I started, their reading specialist trained herself to convert print to Braille. So I had access to all my textbooks, exams, all the reading was in Braille. There was just one problem. The cafeteria menu was only in print, and sighted students could walk in, browse the menu, and then go to their station of choice. I was paying to eat at the cafeteria, but I didn't have access to food information. And when you're a vegetarian, it's really frustrating to not have access to food information. So I went to the cafeteria manager and I explained the menu is only in print, but if you provide it in Braille or post it online or email it to me, I can read emails and websites that are accessible. They said they're very busy. They don't have time to do special things for students with special needs. Just to be clear, eating is not a special need. There's this myth that non-disabled people are independent and disabled people are dependent, but that's not true. All of us are interdependent. Many of you like drinking coffee. Very few of you grow your own coffee beans. You depend on other people to harvest the beans. And we need to be honest about the fact that all of us depend on each other. The cafeteria manager didn't seem to understand this, and I was stuck not having access to the menus. I told myself, there are worse things in the world. It's just menus. Just deal with it. My mother, when she was my age, was a refugee in Sudan. Who was I to complain? Maybe this was a lesson that disabled students should get used to inferior services. This went on for months, and I tried really hard tolerating it. I went to friends. We talked about it. I did research online. Then I went back to the cafeteria manager explaining the Americans with Disabilities Act prohibits discrimination against students with disabilities. If you don't provide access to the menu, I'm going to take legal action. I had no idea how to do that. I was 19. I couldn't afford a lawyer. Now I know there are nonprofit legal centers supporting students with disabilities, but back then I didn't know that. All I knew is I had to try. I had to do something. The next day, the manager apologized and promised to make the menus accessible. They started emailing them on time in accessible formats, so I could read the emails on my Braille computer. And if it said, Station 4, cheese tortellini, I could use my white cane and navigate all the way to Station 4. Life became delicious. The next year, there was a new blind student at the college, and he had immediate access to the menus. That taught me when I advocate, it helps other students. There are so many barriers impacting women, people of color, disabled people, and sometimes we tell ourselves, oh, it's just a small thing, just deal with it. Those small things add up. When we take time to address a small barrier, we build up the skills to master the larger obstacles. And I wanted to build up my skills and help advocate for more people. Law school would be a way to do that. I reached out to various law schools. Harvard got back to me and they said they'd never had a deaf-blind student before. I told them I've never been to Harvard Law School before. They didn't have all the answers, but we engaged in an interactive process to find the solutions and make it work. I graduated in 2013, and I have the photo to prove it. In this photo, Dean Minnow is handing me my diploma. The dean and I are wearing academic regalia, and my guide dog is wearing a fancy fur coat. I've been describing videos and photos through this presentation. It's an element of visual accessibility. It's not just for blind individuals. Sometimes material is reused in audio-only formats. Sometimes people are multitasking and not able to look at the screen. And when we provide information in multiple formats, we reach more people. One note, the dog in the photo is not the same dog that's on screen. The dog in the photo is Maxine, my first guide dog. She was absolutely amazing. In 2018, she passed away due to cancer. And it was really, really hard losing a partner. Guide dogs are incredible. They're trained for almost 2 years on how to navigate worlds, how to stop for traffic, changes in elevation. There's a lot they do, and losing one is really, really hard. I went back to the guide dog school, and they matched me with Milo, who is the dog that's up here with me. He's very sweet, a really good traveler, but he didn't go to Harvard. You will sometimes encounter people who ask, why should I bother with accessibility? And reluctance to give funding or grants to disability-related projects. I want to share some arguments you can use to help convince people to invest in disability. Next slide. So the first argument you can use is that you'll reach more people. There are over 60 million disabled people in the United States, and around the world, over 1.3 billion disabled people. So, huge audience. You grow your audience when you invest in accessibility. And it's a larger talent pool you can reach when your workplaces, digital spaces are fully accessible. Another argument you can use is that digital design that's accessible. is often more discoverable. When you add image descriptions to photos, captions and transcripts to videos, more people will find your content. Search engine optimization. And my favorite argument is that disability drives innovation. Many of the vegetable peelers, keyboards, emails, so many different things we use today were sparked by disability. One of my favorite examples, many years ago, before email or even Braille, blind people who wanted to write letters dictated them and other people wrote it down for them. There were two friends in Italy, one blind, one sighted, who really wanted to send each other letters. And they used this as a design challenge. How do we make a way to write that doesn't require sight? And they ended up building one of the first working typewriters. With the typewriter, you can memorize the layout of the keyboard and type without sight. Nowadays, lots of people write letters on keyboards, and some of the fastest typists are touch typists. In the 60s and 70s, disabled people advocated for curb cuts in the city of Berkeley. And once those curb cuts were installed, curb cuts are the ramps at the end of sidewalks. Once those ramps were installed, people who use wheelchairs gained greater freedom and mobility, moving around Berkeley. Parents pushing strollers appreciated the curb cuts. Kids with skateboards loved the curb cuts. And today, autonomous delivery robots get to use the curb cuts. I doubt in the 60s and 70s, people imagined these little autonomous robots delivering medication and groceries. My mic is slipping a little bit, so I'm going to try to adjust it. Okay, I'll leave it there. So when you invest in disability challenges, you could end up building the solutions that pave the way for the entire community, disabled and non-disabled people. These are just two examples of many, many different examples. So if you encounter a stubborn person who asks why bother with accessibility, tell them they'll reach more people, they'll drive innovation, they'll increase content discoverability. And if they're still not convinced, tell them about legal requirements. There are legal requirements all over the world. The one in the US is strongly held by the Americans with Disabilities Act. There's a myth in some spaces in the US that say the ADA does not apply to tech. It's not true. Tech also must be accessible. And I worked on one of the cases that a library, a digital library called Script, was arguing that the ADA only applies to physical places, not digital places. And we took them to court. The judge in that case held the ADA does in fact apply to online spaces. And after that, Script, the library, agreed to work with the National Federation of the Blind to make the library accessible to blind readers. So tech also must be accessible, and that's an argument you can use to convince people to invest in accessibility. Litigation is expensive and time-consuming. It's much easier to choose inclusion rather than dealing with lawyers. There's sometimes confusion about how blind people would use apps and websites, so I have a short demo for this. Video, please. So when I'm using my phone, I use VoiceOver. VoiceOver can speak out loud and send information to the digital braille display.
News. Checking for news. National Geographic. Unread. World's largest rodents on lam from Toronto Zoo.
I'm panning right on the Braille display using the advanced forward button. If I wanted to instead use hand gestures on the iPhone, I could flick right with one finger. To open an item, I can double tap anywhere on the screen.
Text size. Caption. Title. Title. World's large title. After escaping from the High Park Zoo in Canada, 2 capybaras have eluded capture by Jason Biddle. Published June 9. Most people do their best to avoid rodents of unusual size. But after a pair of capybaras escaped from Toronto's High Park Zoo on May alert. Gordon. Hi, I'm at the door. Sushi, pot of food, fish cake with swirl design.
My friend's at the door, so I'm just gonna let him know.
Close. Button. Reply. Button. Messages notification. Hang. In. There. I'm almost done with this demo. Send. Button.
VoiceOver has allowed me to access more information, news, mail, and messages, and it's also a way for me to know when friends are at the door. That was a mainstream news app, not a special, separate app. Sometimes when we ask people to invest in accessibility, they think, oh, we'll build a separate website or a separate school for disabled people. It might start out with good intentions, but down the line, the separate school, the separate website ends up with fewer updates, fewer resources. And that's not equal. Separate is never equal. What we want is one school, one website, one app that's accessible to everyone. And you can help encourage better, stronger, more accessible designs for all our future tech. Next slide. In this photo, I am standing by a table reading from a Braille computer. President Obama is on the other side of the table typing on a keyboard. And President Biden and Valerie Jarrett are watching the conversation. I met all of them at the 25th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act. And I explained that I'm deafblind and access information best through Braille. President Obama usually communicates by voice, and he graciously switched from voicing to typing so I can access his words. Inclusion is a choice. All of us, when we choose inclusion, we role model it for everyone else around us. All of our bodies change as we age, and we deserve dignity and access at every stage in our lives. Next slide. I wrote a book called Haben, the Deafblind Woman Who Conquered Harvard Law. A lot of people would tell me, you overcame your disability to go to Harvard. And that's not true. I'm still disabled. It was Harvard that had to overcome years of sexism and racism and ableism. They still have more work to do. And all of us still have more work to do to create a more accessible and equal society. On screen is the cover of my book with a photo of me and the title. And then I also have my social media accounts, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook under my name, Haben Girma. And my website URL is also up there, habengirma.com. I'm going to switch to Q&A so we can hear from people. And the way we're doing this is you will have the opportunity to use the keyboard as President Biden and Obama did. And we will have the keyboard up on stage, and you can type your question and I'll voice it and answer. If you can't type for a disability or other reason, we can ask the typist to assist you. If you need assistance coming on stage, you can raise your hand and a student volunteer will assist you in coming on stage. And if people could line up to that. This is John. I have water for you. Thank you, John. If everyone could line up to the left, to your right of the stage, if you're interested in asking a question. And then can we get the keyboard up? Milo, 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 Milo. This is John. I will start with the first question. It's always hard to ask the first. Yes, it is. I admire your courage, John. I'm curious, what led you to go into law? The law is a powerful tool for creating change. And a lot of accessibility in the United States was sparked by passage of the Americans with Disabilities Act. So I wanted to be able to harness the law and create more change and remove barriers for disabled people. So that's inspired me to go into law. Thank you. Clayton Lewis is here. Is the ADA an online space settled law or still fought over? It is still fought over. There's still people arguing that the ADA doesn't apply to virtual spaces and technology. And there are lots of cases that argue, yes, it does. So there's lots of conversation around that happening. This is Annie Ross. Do you have recommendations for how we teach disability and accessibility to move away from needing humanizing videos and stories? Excellent question. So that's dependent on society. We still need those humanizing videos right now. And if that happens enough, if kids very early on get lots of stories about disability, and they have lots of classmates with disabilities, and they have teachers and principals with disabilities, then they will no longer need humanizing videos. But there's still so much segregation. There's still disabled students sent to separate classrooms and separate schools. There's still that need for humanizing videos. But I'm hopeful we'll get there with the more people learn, non-disabled people learn, and also disabled people sometimes have internalized ableism and sometimes need to be reminded of all their potential or the potential of people with different lived disabilities. So that's an ongoing process. Hi, this is Mary Ringel. Morris. We talked about AI. I was wondering what you think are the potentials and risks of AI for supporting the needs of people with disabilities. That is a complicated question. There's so much potential. So, like many blind people, I have AI tools that will scan text and give me a good guess of what they think the text is, or will scan products and give me a guess of what it thinks the product is. That is very, very helpful. But it also can get dangerous if it's like medication and it's guessing and it gets it wrong. That can be very dangerous. So there are various spaces where there should be more of an effort to not rely on AI for disabled people to have access to health and other educational material. AI should fill in space where an organization doesn't have the resources and skills to provide full data right now. But the goal should be to remove AI. So if an organization has the resources to make medication content accessible, rather than telling people to rely on AI, they should be doing that. If they're just telling people to use AI tools, that's really dangerous. So that's a short answer to a very complicated question. You're welcome. Thank you. And what's your name? I am Kathy McCoy. I'm nervous typing. I think there is so much to do for accessibility. How do we prioritize what is most important for anyone? Too much, and we can't do it all. Ask disabled people. So sometimes organizations, when facing constraint, will decide X is more important than Y, without actually asking disabled people what accessibility projects and priorities are most important. So engage with disabled people, ask those questions, and let's strive for a world where everything will be accessible rather than settling for partial accessibility. You're welcome. This question comes from Discord. It's asked by Susanna Abler. They ask, I was wondering, what approach should we recommend to create more accessible spaces in communities with limited financial and social resources? So I've done work in Ethiopia, and so many people say things like, oh, getting schools for deaf-blind kids or disabled kids is impossible because we don't have the resources that are available in the United States. If you don't have the resources for expensive Braille computers, you can use other alternative solutions like print on palm, finger spelling, sign languages. There's so many different ways disabled, deaf-blind people connected and communicated before expensive Braille computers came out. There are Perkins Braillers that are available in Ethiopia and other places. So sometimes it is frustrating not to have the financial resources available in other places, but don't let that be an excuse. Find an affordable solution in the meantime as you seek funding for the more expensive solutions. We should be able to have access for everyone using the tools and abilities and resources we do have. Thanks, Susanna. You're welcome. I also live transcribe that back into Discord. This is John. Thank you, John. We have time for 2 more questions. Hi, I'm Vinitha. I appreciate your perspective as a person who has immigrant parents and the complex feelings about asking for resources. How can we empower first-generation children with disabilities to advocate for their needs? So in my case, my parents did not know about Braille or sign language or even Helen Keller. There were a lot of unknowns. But we were in the San Francisco Bay Area, which happens to be the heart of the disability rights movement. So there were a lot of people who knew Braille and sign language and could help introduce me to that and tell me about surfing programs for disabled people and rock climbing for blind kids so I can build up my confidence, build community and friendships. So my recommendation for supporting first-generation students is help find community, whether that's summer camps or local organizations. Help connect them so that they can build friendships and mentorships with other disabled people who can help teach about all the different possibilities and building confidence and alternative techniques. You're welcome. Hi, this is Yusi. And apologies if I didn't say that right. Do you have any particular challenge, new challenge to conquer on mind Ah, so I'm actually not a daredevil. I don't seek out things like surfing and skydiving for the sake of doing them. I'm most interested in building community, and I got into those activities through friends and through communities. So I love dancing because it's a way to stay connected with my friends who love dancing. I love eating delicious food and meeting with friends through food. So I will probably have friends introduce me to a new challenge, but I'm not yet sure what that would be. Do you have recommendations? Any computer science stuff? That is an excellent recommendation. There's a lot of potential with tech. So I will be talking with people today to get more ideas on what computer science stuff I should look into more. Thank you. You're welcome. And that's a wrap. Thank you so much, Haben, for coming. Absolutely. It was an amazing talk and such a lovely round of Q&A. So now we can move to the meet and greet. I'm looking forward to meeting more people, especially if I know it can be awkward to come on stage and type in front of everyone. I also wanted to highlight how we can shift our communication styles to accommodate and adapt different people. So I look forward to talking with people in the dining hall where we're moving next. Yep. Okay, so now we will adjourn.